Good evening. Hey, Mrs. Alderete. Hey, Mr. Rodriguez. Who's that? Do I see there?
Is that Miss Sandejo?
Yes, sir. Hey, Mr. Cummins. I don't see you, Mr. Rodriguez.
I know.
Are you talking about my big hair, sir?
I got a really bad haircut, so it's going to be a surprise.
Did you get a Scott haircut, sir?
Then we really need to see it, sir. Hello, Miss Barba.
No, I'm.
Good evening.
I'm just kidding. I was just kidding, you guys.
Hey.
Hello, Mrs.
I haven't had a reason to shave.
Hello, Mrs. Prado.
Hey, my lashes stuck today. It's the least I could do. Try, right? Lashes.
Okay, let's see. We got everybody here. Looks like we're waiting on Mr. Flores and Miss Shirley Barapena.
Is that yours?
Yeah, I didn't realize I was muted. Yeah, that's a former haircut that I gave myself. And oddly enough, I had worked all day and didn't see it until a board meeting about 9 o'clock that night. So yeah, anytime somebody says bad haircut, it reminds me of the days that I sometimes cut my own. I don't make that mistake anymore. I don't think Scott Lolliman will either.
Yeah, we saw Scott's.
Hey, it's grown back though.
There's Kevin.
Okay, looks like we
And
got.
Good evening, Mr. Flores. Good
Hi,
evening, Mr.
everybody.
Vasquez.
Everybody's here.
We got. I see Miss Shirley Barapena as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
I forgot what you sounded like, ma'am.
I know.
How
Still,
are you doing?
okay, but I have to get tested again, so. But, oh well.
Well, I hope you feel better soon. I'm glad you joined us.
Thank you. I'm just bored out of my mind being here at home.
Strange times.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go, guys. The special called meeting of the South San Antonio Independent School District Board of Trustees will now come to order. Today is Wednesday, July 8th, 2020, and the time is 6 p.m. Michelle, if we can have a roll call, please.
Ms. Stacy Alderete,
Present.
Mr. Gilbert Rodriguez, Ms. Connie Prado, I see you, Ms. Prado. I didn't hear anything. Oh, I see your thumbs up. Okay. Ms. Shirley Ibarra-Peña? Okay. Mr. Homer Flores?
Here.
Mr. Kevin Rasco?
Present.
Ms. Veronica Barba?
Present.
Thank you, Michelle. If we can all participate in the Pledge of Allegiance, Texas Pledge, prayer, and our call to action.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please bow your head in prayer. As we begin this meeting, Lord, we want to give honor to you. Thank you, God, for the time we have today to discuss issues. May you bless us gather today be on them. Amen. Call to action. All students will enjoy successful education experiences, empowering them to make decisions while enriching their lives in the future they create.
Thank you, Ms. Collier. Board members, before we move forward without objection, I'd like to propose a change of order. What I'd like to do is move presentation reports after discussion and possible action as we come out of executive session. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The first item on the agenda is the citizens to be heard. Mr. Rasco.
Yes, sir. We do have one citizen to be heard. It is Mr. Tom Cummins. Is he present to speak?
Thank you. Thank you. President Rodriguez, members of the board, Dr. Puig. My name is Tom Cummins, and I'm representing South San AFT. Ms. Aldrete, we wish you the best in your recovery, and we hope that those present tonight, the board members, the administration, and others, stay safe and healthy. Our members have had a great many concerns about the reopening of the school year. As a result, South San AFT joined with other unions, community groups, parent groups, students, and community members in developing a blueprint for safely reopening schools. I've attached a copy of that report to my presentation. The report is still a work in progress. AFT has not had an opportunity yet to discuss reopening in a consultation meeting with Dr. Puig. However, we are looking forward to that discussion. Teachers and support personnel are very concerned about returning, both as employees and as parents of school-age children. We have had Zoom meetings with both AFT members and non-members to discuss these concerns, and we have many questions for the administration which desperately need answers. In the meantime, however, South San AFT has a request of the school board and the superintendent. In our Zoom meetings, teachers and support personnel overwhelmingly want to start the school year with distance learning only. At a minimum, it should be distance learning only until the Tuesday after Labor Day, leaving the district with the ability to continue with distance learning should the need be there as it is today. However, we would like to request that it go the full first 9 weeks. 2 school districts in Laredo have already chosen to open with distance learning only. In El Paso, the mayor and county judge are prepared to order the schools closed, overruling TEA. There are other districts such as Conatillo that are either opening with only distance learning or are considering that option. Please do the right thing and protect the health and safety of our students and employees above all else. Thank you. With the few minutes I have left, or a few little time, I'd like to read some of the questions until my time runs out. Has a plan been put into action?
You have about 40
regarding
seconds, Mr. Cummins.
Thank you. Yet regarding COVID-19, Are the protocols written? What safety procedures are in place for school to start in August if it is indeed face-to-face? Is there sufficient personal protective equipment for employees and students? Masks, hand sanitizers, other sanitizers, soap, plastic shields, etc. What protocol will teachers need to follow if they or someone in their household comes down with COVID? Will employees be notified if a colleague or student tests positive for COVID? Will the protocols encourage employees who test positive to not tell anyone for fear of losing income? Will masks be mandated for students 10 years of age and above, as well as 9 years and younger? We've heard different versions. What is the plan for special education students? And then finally, last year, there were a few principals who did not always follow the safety guidelines, allowing some on campus to not wear masks, not enforcing social distancing, and having large meetings. Will these safety protocols be enforced? We shouldn't have to be calling central office as we did last year to bring that information to the attention of the administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cummins. And Chairman Rodriguez, I do not see any other comments to be read.
Thank you, Mr. Rasco. Mr. Cummins. Excuse me. The next item on the agenda is the closed executive session. The board will return into open session and take appropriate action, if any, on items discussed in closed session. No action will be taken in closed session. Further, board members are reminded that all items discussed in closed session must remain confidential so as to avoid liability to the district. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a responsibility to ensure that we are in an area that allows for individual privacy and no interruption. The board will consider and discuss the following items. Closed meeting pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.0821. Item number 1, discuss possible employment of administrators, including principals, directors, and chief academic officer. And the time is 6:07 p.m. Board members, you should have another invite in your email for the closed session. See you guys later. I think we're just waiting for Ms. Prado to get connected here. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, looks like we got Ms. Prado here, Mr. Flores, Mr. Rasco, Ms. Alderete, Ms. Barbo. Okay, I think we are ready to go. The board will reconvene back into open session. The time is 6:39 p.m. Due to the change of order at the start of the meeting, we will now proceed to discussion and possible action. Item number 1, reconvene into open session. Consideration and possible approval of items discussed in closed session. Dr. Puig, I'd like, before I ask for a motion, I'd like to get your recommendation on any potential hires.
Thank you, Chairman Rodriguez and trustees. Tonight, trustees, I have the honor and privilege of recommending 2 blue chippers, 2 servant leaders that understand the pervasive importance of putting kids first in public education. And I'm honored to recommend tonight for the Chief Academic Officer, Miss Teresa Servillon, and also for the Shepherd Middle School principal position, Mrs. Amy Rodriguez, for your consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Puig. Board members, we have a recommendation from Dr. Puig on hires. At this time, the chair will entertain any motions.
Board President, I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Alderete?
I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
I have a motion by Ms. Alderete to approve the recommendation of Dr. Puig's hires. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Barbara. Michelle, if we can have a roll call, please. Michelle? I want to make sure we get it on the record here.
We'll give her a minute or so, and then I'm happy to take the vote if it comes down to that.
Okay, Mr. Baum, we'll give her about another minute here. There she is. Hi, Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, great. So just to recap, Dr. Puig made a recommendation on the hires for the Shepherd Principal and the CAO. There was a motion by Ms. Alderete and a second by Ms. Barba, and we are now at a roll call vote.
Stacy Alderete,
Yes.
Gilbert Rodriguez,
Yes.
Tony Prado,
Yes.
Shirley Ibarra Peña, Miss Ibarra Peña, can you hear me?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's just that I got a call from my doctor's office. What was can you repeat what was said? I'm sorry.
Yes, Miss Ibarra Peña, there was a recommendation by Dr. Puig on the two hires for CAO and the Shepherd Principal. There was a motion by Ms. Alderete, a second by Ms. Barba, and we're at a roll call vote. That's your turn.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay. And
Sorry.
Mr. Homer Flores,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Kevin Rasco,
Yes.
Miss Veronica Barba.
Yes.
Okay, that is a 7-0, Ms. Rodriguez.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Michelle. Dr. Puig, do we know if either one of these individuals are online or wanting to make a few comments? Otherwise, we can move forward.
But we can move forward, sir. They're not available tonight.
Okay, great. Well, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. The next item on the agenda is the presentation and reports. Item number 1, update on TE guidance and remote learning pathways. Dr. Puig.
Thank you, Chairman Rodriguez. Trustees, I'm gonna pivot over to a presentation of some information that I sent you yesterday, hot off the press from TEA. I just want to underscore a few points and the implications it has in terms of the public health guidelines that are coming down from TEA for in-person instruction. So let me pivot over to that real quick, and we'll go through it briefly and talk through some of the items as needed here. Okay, can everyone see that?
No.
No, sir, not yet.
Okay. How do you like that?
There we go.
Okay, everybody. Okay. Everybody with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I shared this with you. And again, what I typically do when we get information from the commissioner's office, as soon as I get it, I push it out to you. It's our job as administrators to make sure you are well informed of what's happening. This is very, very important that we go over the public health planning guidance as it pertains to virtual learning and of course, equally important, the in-person learning that is expected of us from the Texas Education Agency. So I just want to touch on a few things. This document is really broken down into 4 areas. And the 4 areas are, again, about providing notice, prevention, the response, and mitigation. So let's talk through a few of those things just briefly. And I'm going to highlight some areas that's important for us to understand the implications for us as administrators and what that means for the board in terms of what you should expect from us in terms of planning. So I'll move pretty quickly, but don't hesitate to just insert yourself in the conversation here. One thing that's interesting, I'll note out, I noted here, it says, there will almost certainly be situations, almost certainly, when we have necessitate temporary school closure due to positive cases. I don't know why almost is there. There will certainly be situations where if there is a positive test in any one of our campuses, we will shut down. So I want to be real clear about that. Now, again, the first component is really looking at the required notice. we have to develop a plan, and we have to summarize that document, that plan. We have to summarize it, and we have to do so 1 week before the first day of school. The first day of school for us is 8/12. I'm getting kind of messy here. 8/12. We're not going to wait to 8/5 to post our plan. That's too late. So we already know we're planning and developing our plan for the on-campus activities already. We've got iterations that have been stood up by the task force, the South San Task Force. They've done an amazing job of putting this together. And when we get information, we keep tweaking that plan. So we have that, and we're prepared to share that. And we're going to make sure the community has it way in advance of the first day of school. So we're required to develop that plan. Okay. We're required to post that plan publicly. So that's very, very important. I'm not going to touch on all the attendance and enrollment. I think we know that. I'm going to touch on this over here a little bit on 5 and 6 here. Again, it's important about the plan that we also let our folks know that during the first 3 weeks of school, just so we can facilitate effective back to school transition processes, we can limit access to on-campus instruction those first 3 weeks. So we can limit it just so we can kind of ease our way back very carefully, okay? And of course, that's a function of who has the technology and the infrastructure to handle that at home. So just know that that's going to be part of our plan. And also it's important to know this, that school systems, we're required to provide parents notice of their public educational enrollment and attendance rights during this COVID. You can't keep people out. You can't. You can't say you can only go to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. No, you can't do that. If they want to go in person all 5 days, right now we have to let them go all 5 days. That's it. And of course, there's just exceptions to that if someone's ill and so forth. Okay. The second piece is really the prevention and what that looks like. We have to ensure a rigorous self-assessment screening process during this. And we're going to implement that. We've got screening questions already in place, but we have to make sure that our system allows for teachers and staff to self-screen the COVID systems before coming onto campus each day. Parents have a role in ensuring they don't send their kids to school if they've got COVID symptoms. Okay, so these are very, very important mechanisms. We have to have the screening questions in place. And again, we've got all this stuff in the works, so we feel good about it. I just want you to be aware of what we're required to do in our plan, okay? And of course, individuals that are confirmed or suspected to have COVID, you're not going to be able to come back to school unless you meet certain conditions. These conditions are laid out right here, okay? So we're going to have to be very, very strict about this process. There's a lot of logistics we're going to have to put in place to make sure this thing runs smoothly. But again, fortunately, our task force has been nothing short of spectacular in meeting the demands of these guidelines. And these ones just came out. So they're doing a great job of putting this together. I'm going to go to the third piece real quick, and that is the response. Okay, so what if there's a confirmed case? What do we do? There's a confirmed case at Kaizen Middle School. What do we do? Well, first thing we got to do is notify the local health department. That's what we got to do, number one. And then number two, we got to make sure that we close off any areas that we feel like were those areas most impacted. And the reality is it may be the whole school. And we are going to have to require notification to our parents, the families of those students, and all the teachers when we have a case. And of course, we have to follow FERPA and all the HIPAA laws and so forth there, but notification is going to be required. And FYI, all of those questions that Mr. Cummings raised, we've addressed all of those already. Those have all been addressed. And I'm confident to say, again, our task force has been nothing short of spectacular in addressing each one of those questions. So notification requirements are there when there is a case. Now, mitigation, and again, I'm going kind of fast here, mitigation practices. We've talked about mitigation practices at length, whether it's the social distancing, the sanitation stations, the face guards, the masks. All of those things are going to be in the decontamination, all the disinfection procedures. All of those things are going to be in place. There will be no stone left unturned. Every single possible safety measure will be put in place. Now, doing all that, can you guarantee someone is not going to get it? Of course not. You can't. But what we can guarantee is we are going to do our part to ensure we are creating the safest conditions under the circumstances. And that's what this all talks about here. Now, I will say this right here. On the first day of school on campus, we have to provide instruction to students on the appropriate hygiene practices and other mitigation practices adopted by our local school system. So we've got to sell this stuff to the kids, what we're doing in terms of hygiene practices and safety and guidelines and so forth, okay? Now, the big question comes up about masks. You hear about the mask controversy. Look, the governor has issued an executive order right now about masks. So any child over the age of 9 right now in school, we start at school tomorrow, has to wear a mask. That's it. That's the governor's order. Will that order stick? I don't know. I really don't. We don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know right now. But that is the case right now. Now, if you keep going down through here, I'm going to touch on a few more things. When we think about mitigation, it's important for us to consider transition procedures to reduce the large group gatherings and proximity. So we need to consider, when we look at logistics in schools and minimizing gatherings and exits and entrance, we need to look at staggering start times and exit times, and how do we make this thing as safe as possible in terms of large groups. So that's something we're going to look at too. And again, depending on our local conditions, here's something too. We got to eliminate these assemblies, these activities that we're used to, these large groups of teachers and staff. We can't do it. We just can't do it. And so we're going to make sure that's part of our plan as well. And I think the last little thing I want to talk about here is, look, we need to do everything to reduce the in-person staff meetings and any other opportunities where adults are congregating in closed settings. We just need to stay away from that as much as possible. When school starts, there's going to be this natural tendency, this inclination to want to go back to the way it used to. You're going to start school, there's not going to be any cases perhaps, maybe the first couple of days, and everyone's going to want to think, oh, this feels good, we're back to school. Let's start the gathering. Let's kind of let our guard down a little bit, and boom, here we go again. So we need to really send a message in our plan about reducing in-person staff meetings and any other desire to bring folks together. And again, everybody's well-intentioned, but we've got to understand this virus has taken hold. The data are clear about this virus and where it's going here in our community, and we need to make sure we are vigilant in our safety practices. So that's it in a nutshell. I know you all had this document. I know you read it cover to cover. I just wanted to reinforce a few of those items tonight, Mr. Board President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Puig. Board members, at this time, are there any questions for Dr. Puig or comments? Ms. Alderete?
Mine's going to be a bit, I've read everything. I'm not in agreement. I'm sorry. You're not going to change my mind. I understand that this is a business, but a business is not worth putting a child at risk. I understand that TEA has given us guidelines. I 100% agree with what Mr. Cummings said, because I know, because I'm living this virus, because I have to sit in a room and watch my son suffer. I didn't know I had this virus. I carried it for 2 weeks, not knowing I had this virus. And if we're not 100%, our jobs as hosts of this district and these children and our staff is if we're not 100% in their safety, then we shouldn't do it. I am fully going to support the online right now. I think that is what we should do. I mean, Dr. Puig, you know what this can do. I know what this can do, and I'm watching what it's doing to my kid. And I, as a representative of these children and these teachers and this staff, will not make a decision or agree to put anybody at any type of risk. And technology has come a long way. I'm the first one to say I hate technology. You know, I'm not good at it, but I'm learning. And there's so much that can be done, and we've seen it. And I think that's something that we owe to our children. We owe to figure it out, because putting them in a classroom not knowing is not acceptable. It's just not. And people can sit and say, well, you know, you don't know, or well, I don't want to try it. I don't want to take that chance. 2 of my friends died today from this virus. This is not something to take so lightly. I don't know what TEA is thinking. And I'm understanding the money part. Well, then let's change it around. Let's work on this virtual stuff, because I am not willing. My kid's not going to sit in a classroom because they don't know. The doctors have told me, they don't know if you can get it a second or a third time. I am not willing to watch my son go through this again. I'm just not. And from what I've read thus far, many of our community members feel the same. And I've gotten call and message after message after message. And it is our job to hear our community. That's all I have to say for now.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to just be very honest with you. 1, I'm not trying to change your mind, and I don't want to do that. Number 2, I'm in agreement with you. And I shared this morning, I had the question, I had a great conference call this morning with 5 campuses and teachers only. And I say teachers only, we had other members also from the task force on there. But the question was, you know, can we go virtual, and preferably through December? And I said, well, let me answer the question for you 2 ways. 1, personally speaking, and 1, professionally speaking, because of my job. Personally speaking, we need to go virtual all the way through December. This doesn't make any sense. Do you understand the chaos that's going to happen on day 1 when we try to put masks and face shields on kids? Imagine the bell. Here's the bell. Ring, the bell rings, and there's masks and shields and just chaos. No, stop, down the hall, social distance, put your mask.
Dr. Puig, your mute went on. There you go.
Okay, where did I stop?
Your mask went on. That's where we stopped.
They were tossing their mask all over the hallways.
Yeah, they're tossing their mask all over.
I had a visual going too.
There's a level of foolishness there. Anyway, I shared that with the teachers this morning. That's how I feel personally. Why would we jeopardize our most precious resource? They come to us to be protected every day. Why would we do this? Now, yes, now that's me personally. Now, professionally, we got a job to do. TEA is saying you got to do this, you got to do that. Now, so this is what we have to do. So I have an obligation to actually present this and try to put our best foot forward, given the demand by the TEA. Now, we're going to go above and beyond that, and let's work together as a community to say, let's get some local control here. And what can we do to make a decision that's best for the context of South San America here, and the data that are clearly here showing this isn't a wise thing to do. That's what I'm coming from, ma'am.
Mr. Rodriguez,
can I finish up?
Ms. Aldrete, if we can afford everyone an opportunity to go around one time, and then we'll circle back around, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Mr. Rasco.
Oh, I didn't want to step on. I think Ms. Ibarra-Pena was ahead of me.
Oh, okay, Ms. Ibarra-Pena.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Kevin. I wanted to agree with what Ms. Aldrete said, because I do feel that it is important for the safety of our kids, you know, not sending them in to the classrooms as well as our staff, because this second second thing of the coronavirus is for some reason is hitting a lot stronger than the first. And me, that I work in the medical field, I've come across a lot of people already, that are positive, and it's spreading like wildfire. And the safety of our children is first, as well as our teachers and staff. I do agree that, it would be virtual until this blows over, until there's some type of, protocol to, work out. I mean, I understand TEA has their thing, but because, how this is really spreading like crazy, it's just, you don't know if the person next to you will have it or not, because the symptoms don't show right away. And, for me, that I'm a parent, I do have my daughter. She goes to Northside, and I'm really for her to be doing it online, because, I don't want to risk my child to get contaminated with this. And I know a lot of parents, feel the same. But, I do really, I really don't say much, but this is going on, too many lives have been lost. And in fact, I have lost someone too, due to this. But, our kids' safety is more important, especially the little ones. The little ones really don't know, with these masks and shields, they're not going to be aware of that, the little ones. But, I just do hope that their virtual can go through December, like you mentioned, Dr. Quaid. Hopefully they can reconsider in doing that. That's all I have.
Yes, ma'am. And we're going to pitch for that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Ibarra-Peña.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. And I'm going to second and third, actually, Ms. Aldrete and Ms. Ibarra-Peña. I've been very blessed that no one too close to me has suffered much from this virus yet, but I feel that it's just a matter of time. So I'd like to speak for just a moment. I have so much to say, but I know I need to cut it short. I've worked on an elementary campus, I've worked on a middle school campus, and I've worked on a high school campus. And the idea that children are going to social distance and wear masks and keep their hands clean is preposterous. When I was a principal at an elementary school, I got about 2,000 hugs a day. I went home with mustard and jelly on my shirt, because that's how kids are. So I'm very concerned about putting too many kids together in a building, and I'm concerned for our kids, and I'm concerned for our multi-generational homes. When our kids mix and then go home and they have medically fragile multi-generational members of their home, what's going to happen when that virus spreads around them? So I was browsing the internet today, and the Texas Education Agency, and if you go to tea.texas.gov, they have a news message on their home screen, and it says that the TEA office is closed and they will not accept guests, and they are for safety of their staff working from home. So if a building full of college-educated adults are too concerned to go into work, how can they tell us that our kids need to go back into schools? That seems a bit preposterous to me. And I'll close with one other statement. How can we as a school board meet virtually to tell our kids that they need to go back to school in person? That seems to be a little hypocritical to me. So I want schools to open. I am an educator, and I want things to go back to normal. I want kids in seats. I want to high five them in the hallways. I want to hug them at lunch, but it's just not time yet. When we rightfully closed schools at the end of March, we were looking at 300 cases a day, 350 cases a day. In the state of Texas, right now, we're hitting 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 cases a day. It's not time to open. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Rasco. Any other board members have comments, questions regarding Dr. Puig's presentation? I certainly do. Thank you to my colleagues for sharing their concerns. I've had the privilege of engaging with other board members across the state, most recently today, with other board officers from other boards across the state. And, you know, we all have the same concerns. We all have the same priorities, which is the safety of our kids first and foremost. So listening and engaging with other board members across the state, you know, in some way, shape, or form gives me a little bit of reassurance that we're all going to figure this out together. And, you know, I'm a parent of two boys that are going to be attending in the school district, right? So there's a lot of questions and concerns that I have as a parent as well. Certainly, pandemic or no pandemic, our number one priority is the safety of our kids and the safety of our staff. First and foremost, unequivocally, is not even up for debate or discussion. I think I can speak for my colleagues on the board and even Dr. Puig that we are going to pursue that relentlessly, no matter what. But I do have faith. I do have confidence that Dr. Puig and his staff and the task force are gonna deliver, you know, whatever means of education, to meet the needs of all of our students, all of our parents, our entire community, right? Everybody's concerned and alarmed. So, you know, I know this was just a presentation on what those requirements are based on the guidelines from TEA. I can assure you in my conversations with Dr. Puig that they're working relentlessly. They every decision that's going to be made and whatever's presented to us that we have to make a decision on, the number one thing is going to be, is it safe? How safe is this? And I agree. You know, if we're being afforded the opportunity to start the academic year and let's wait a few weeks to see what this is going to look like, make sure that we can, I think we did a heck of a job in pivoting as quickly as we did to deliver our virtually to all of our kids, all of our students. I mean, I think we did a phenomenal job. Let's see if we can continue on that momentum and build upon that. I'm on the fence personally. I'll tell you again, I have two boys, and I can only speak for myself as one parent, right? They have a mother as well. I'm on the fence about what I want to do. Let me know how we're going to tackle this thing first, and then give me some confidence, and then we'll see if maybe they can go in a building, right? If not, then, you know, we'll do like we did when March came around and we all sat in the same room with their laptops, and I went with my work day and they went with their school day. So, but I have confidence that one, Dr. Puig and the task force and everybody involved is just unequivocally concerned about the safety of our kids. And then two, that my colleagues on the board here are of the same position. And it looks like we are. So those are my comments. I think Ms. Alderete had something else to say. Or Ms. Prado? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Prado, we can't hear you if you can hear us.
Mr. Flores also had his hand up, Mr. Flores.
Okay. Ms. Prado, do you want to try dialing in again? Let me, I can put the number in the details. Or Scott, if you can put the dial-in numbers for Ms. Prado in the chat, please. While she dials in, we'll go to Mr. Flores. Mr. Flores.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Okay. I always got to ask that. Couple of things. One is that I feel that, or I want to say that I am definitely on board with the majority that says the kids and the staff and the safety of all of them is a priority. I'm witness to two brothers that were COVID-19 positive. One just became negative, but the other one is suffering, and every day it's battling fever and it's battling, health risk because he's diabetic. So he's having trouble breathing, so he can go into the ventilator anytime because of his underlying health. And so it scares me to have a family member that way. And to think of, when I walk outside and see the neighborhood kids running around or in their yard, they're not going everywhere, but they're there in their yard. And to think that I I could say it's okay for you to walk there and potentially catch something that is life-threatening, much less spread something that's life-threatening. And I don't want to be a board trustee responsible for anything like that, or to say that I raised my hand to approve something like that. And so I just want to support and second, third, fourth, fifth my colleagues in saying that, you know, a virtual operation should be sufficient, and that a lot of our focus, and hopefully the task force will see how many more iPads or computers our kids need. You know, what kind of schedule should the custodians and the maintenance people be on? Because right now they're there, so that has me scared for them. You know, but what is there for them, and how are we looking out for them? And then all the way up to the top. And so I have to echo what my colleagues are saying. We should, the plan should be a step at a time. I do appreciate your task force saying we're not going to leave a stone unturned, you know. But COVID-19 doesn't care, and it's going to go for whoever's near and whoever's far. And so I just wanted to definitely make that statement. And if there's another round, I just have questions about the task force. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. I think we're waiting for Ms. Prado to dial in. Ms. Prado, if you can hear us, then Mr. Lalaman just put the dial-in number information in the chat. Ms. Alderete, did you want to make some more comments? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. I have to echo and ditto what everyone is saying on the school board. I too, my kids are grown, but my kids are teachers, and I have grandkids in schools. So I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can only catch about every third word. I don't know about y'all.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead,
Can
Ms.
you hear
Prado.
me?
Yes.
I think we're getting a delay on her. It looks like her computer is running really slow this evening. That's probably what's going on.
Okay.
It's the same thing that was happening with Dr. Puig's computer a couple of meetings ago, where it was just very lagged, like 5-10 minutes behind what was actually going on.
Right, right. Okay, we'll see. Ms. Prado, do you want to try and dial in to the number that Mr. Lalaman put in the chat? There, it looks like she's gonna. We can't hear her. Let's Ms. Alderete, let's pivot to Ms. Alderete here.
You know, Dr. Puig, I want to thank you and the task force for attempting to do as TEA is asking, right? Because we got to do what they're saying. But I want to make sure, and Kevin O'Hanlon, you know, I don't know what we got to do, but there's a consensus here. And we're not voting on anything, but I'm saying how everybody feels. As it isn't safe. If you can't tell me that it's 100% guaranteed, then I'm not doing it. I'm not voting for it. I'm not supporting it. I'm not. This is COVID. This is COVID. I'm not willing to send somebody there. And I think we as a board need to make sure that we stand in the front line with this. My son hasn't eaten for 3 days. I cannot tend to my son. I couldn't clean vomit out of my own hair. I'm not going to put a kid there. So whatever we have to do to protect our children and our staff and everybody here, down to the last janitor in that building, we need to do it. And I don't know what it's going to take, but we need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alderete. Ms. Prado? We can't, if you can hear us, we can't hear you, Ms. Prado.
Ms. Prado, is your phone muted, maybe?
There's a code. I think it's, let me look it up real quick. There's a code that you have to type into the phone because there's so many people in the meeting. You enter the meeting muted.
Right, right.
What if she calls Gilbert's phone and Gilbert puts her on speaker so that we can hear her?
I think that would be an echo. No, there's a key. There's a keys that she'll punch in there as soon as Mr. Lala.
Like *6 or something. I think I remember something like that as well, Scott.
Yes, it is *6. Ms. Prado, press *6 on your phone, and then we'll be able to hear you. Make sure that your phone is also unmuted now, ma'am, if you press the mute button on your phone. Because I can see that you're unmuted in the meeting.
Okay.
There you go.
Now
I
on
hear
your
it now.
computer. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The computer needs to be muted,
All right.
Scott.
Thank you. I just, I want to echo what everybody was saying, and I just want those that are suffering from the COVID-19, our prayers go out to Stacy and her family, to Mr. Flores and his family, to Shirley and her family, and Dr. Puig, I hope you have a speedy recovery. I too have grandchildren that are in school, and I have a granddaughter who's a teacher, so I'm concerned for their health as well. We as senior citizens are at risk, so we have to be very careful. And as Mr. Flores said, we have a lot of custodians, we have bus drivers, we have maintenance people that have been coming in to help to disinfect the schools. They too are high risk. So to open the school right now to protect our children and their families is just, it's unacceptable. And I'm sure that other districts are feeling the same way. And Dr. Puig, I can empathize your situation, being personal and a professional, but I think you've heard from the board, and it's loud and clear that this is not the time to open our campuses to bring our kids back. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Prado. And I'll just say this, I appreciate the unified front in putting safety first. And yes, we do have a professional obligation as educators to do exactly what TEA is asking us to do. And we're going to continue that. The task force will do that. We'll do it in concert together to make sure we are prepared to stand up the safest environment of in-person instruction. But knowing all the while that in light of our current circumstances, and really our future hopes and dreams of our district, what's the wise thing to do? And I think you've said that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Dr. Puig. Board members, any other additional comments?
Sure,
I do.
Briefly,
I'm not sure if this is. Okay, I don't know if this goes to Dr. Puig or Kevin O'Hanlon. Okay, so if TEA persists that we need to open up these schools in August, what options as us trustees, as a school board, have to do we have the option to reject TEA, and are we going to be penalized? Are we going to be sanctioned? What, because we won't, say we want to not open up the schools in August and just go virtual. Is there a penalty to that?
There's no funding if we don't have in-person instruction right now per TEA. There's no funding.
Okay, but we won't be like penalized, like get in trouble or investigation for disobeying TEA or anything?
We won't lose any accreditation status, but we won't have any funding. That's the ramification there. There's just no funding.
If I say something, the issue is that we're still a little, I want to say, premature in this. I know everybody wants to get certainty, and TEA is trying to get certainty on this and all this stuff, but every day there's something that we find out about this disease, and every day our opinions change a little bit with respect to that. TEA is going to require us to open the schools. If the board feels that it isn't safe, we could put out an advisory. We open the schools because the parents don't have to go. All right, we have to provide the school for those that do. For the districts that I'm looking, we're doing parent surveys in a lot of districts that we represent. Y'all's feelings today that you expressed tonight are not a surprise. We're getting significant. More than half of the people are not going to put their kids in school when this starts. It would be my assumption. So there's going to be some opportunities for social distancing because of individual choices that parents make. So what TEA is saying, and TEA is not going to punish us for parental choices that are made with respect to that. If the board's got a stance with respect to a principled stance with respect to what they believe safe, I don't think, but TEA can punish you for you're asserting a First Amendment privilege with respect to what your comment is. So you can advise, you can't close, but what they're saying is you can't close the schools. We don't know a ton of what's going on. Dr. Puig and I were talking about this earlier. I've been watching Europe for a while. They're a month or two ahead of us with respect to experience and how the different age groups are faring over there. So we'll know more than that. We're still a month out. But we're also on the rising end of an expansion in the transmission of the disease in this state, and we don't know if anybody that thinks they can tell you that on August 12th, when we open schools, what the status of the transmission rate, the hospitalization rate, and the cases and stuff in this state are on that date, they're dreaming. Nobody knows. So we're just going to have to pay attention, be honest with what I think the parents are, and this is political. There's red state, blue state, and all this other kind of stuff going on with respect to this. What the parents should be entitled to from us is straight, the district across the board is honest, straightforward, scientific, best information with respect to what we know about the disease, its transmission, the risks associated with going to school, what we can do for them in environments. In other words, we just need to be honest with our constituents about what we can do or can't do for them, and we then let them make up their own minds, and then we will adjust. There's going to be all kinds of situations that go on this year where parents pull them out and then decide that they have to go back to work or something of that nature, and then want to send them back and then pull them out again because there's another scare. There's going to be all kinds of things that we're doing with respect to serving our our kiddos with respect to that and their parents. So we're going to have to be smart. We're going to have to be absolutely brutally honest with respect to what we know. There's room for that if the board wants to take a stand with respect to. I think TA would look askance if you said we refuse to open schools. But I don't think they could do anything if you took a stance with respect to what your assessment, frank assessment of the risk, one way or the other, is, as long as it is factually based and not ideologically based in terms of what's out there. So we owe our constituents the best information that we can get them in as accessible a form, and then we need to be able to moderate or modify our programs to serve the kids in the circumstances where their parents feel that it is the safest to put them, and in the best way that we know how. So I think the answer to this is we are going to have to open if we're going to get funded, but we need to be extremely flexible in terms of what our program looks like, and we need to serve everybody where they end up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. O'Hanlon.
Thank you.
Certainly, thank you, Ms. Ibarra-Peña. Ms. Orozco?
Yeah, just real briefly. Thank you, Dr. Puig, for your candor here. I know this is a difficult situation because there's rules we have to follow, and we just kind of have to follow them. But I guess my request is, let's exercise caution. We are going to need to reopen schools, and it's the timeline that is probably up for debate here, not the fact that we need to reopen schools. And so my advocacy is that we do this carefully and safely. There's a 3-week grace period. My ask would be that we think about utilizing that to see what's happening out there. And of course, that's dependent on how the outbreak is happening. But if we're at the current rates of daily infections, let's try to utilize all the wiggle room TEA is giving us and put it off, because the rules of the game might change and they might have new guidance that comes out. My fear is that we have a stop-start nature to school next year, because when a campus has an outbreak, you have to shut it down. Well, if you've been planning for in-person instruction and now you have to shift to online, there's a back and forth, loss of time that I would really like to try to avoid. It's in for a penny, in for a pound in my mind. Let's be intentional, deliberate, and not waffle back and forth.
Yes, sir. Well said. We'll certainly utilize that grace period to our advantage. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roscoe. Before we move to adjourn, I just want to, there's still a lot of unknowns. There's still a lot of information that we don't have. Certainly, I always like to give football analogies, right? Is we can game plan, and we can game plan, and we can game plan. The ball goes up in the air, and now we got in-game adjustments from right off the bat. And I can certainly probably anticipate that's what's going to happen is, the task force and Dr. Puig are going to do the best job that they can. The ball goes up in the air. Now we got in-game adjustments that we're going to have to make as we move along. So with safety being paramount. So thank you very much to my colleagues for being vocal in their position. And Dr. Puig, thank you for your work and the task force's work as we try to navigate, how we're going to deliver services to our kids. So
yes, sir.
With that, the next item on the agenda is adjournment. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well,
motion to adjourn.
I have a motion by Ms. Ibarra-Peña. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Aldrete. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:31 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Stacy, I love how you make that one word.